Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Stacy Matlin. I am VP of Innovation at the Partnership for New York City, a nonprofit representing the business community here in New York. And we are here today to talk through the info session, the Transit Tech Lab, which is a program that we run in partnership with the MTA. It started back in 2018 to help the MTA, and we've now invited all the regional transit agencies here to help test new technologies that solve their pressing challenges. So the way today will go is I'll run through the program, some key pieces of information that you need to know, and afterwards we will break out into an intimate discussion with an MTA senior staff member and then an alumni of the company. And this will be more of a understanding of how you'll be able to learn from their experience and talk you through some of the program fundamentals. And just housekeeping, if you have questions, please either shoot them directly to myself or my colleague Yasmin Lalani, who's on the line, and we will be able to answer them at the very end after our guided discussion. And just want to gut check, you all see the info session screen? Correct? Great.
I see it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Seems a little weird for me right now. All right, so as mentioned, the Transit Tech Lab, we're a program that's been around since 2018, and our mission is to help all of the regional transit agencies test technologies that solve their pressing challenges. We work, as mentioned, with all 4 regional agencies, so the MTA, New Jersey Transit, New York City Department of Transportation, and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. We have a 6-step process. So every year we go through this process where we meet with regional transit agencies to understand their challenges. We meet with their leadership. We also meet with their staff and get a really deep understanding of what their pressing priorities are for that year. We then go out and publicly launch those challenges. So for this year, we launched our challenges publicly on January 5th. We then have an open application phase, and that's where we're at right now, where we're encouraging and recruiting companies to apply to our online application. Applications are due March 2nd. From there, there's about a month of an evaluation phase, starting with public and private sector evaluators who will review your online applications. And from there, select companies will be invited to participate as a semifinalist. And a semifinalist means that you will participate in a pitch presentation where you will have about 10-15 minutes for you to share your information about your company and time for Q&A. Afterwards, select companies will be invited to a demonstration, a demo day, where you'll have more of an in-person expo style touch and feel of your technology. So agency representatives can get a better sense of your technology. And then from there, transit agencies will select companies to participate in an 8-week proof of concept. The 8-week proof of concept begins May 1st and will go to June 28th. And from there, this is where you'll work directly with agencies to understand if your technology works. You'll be paired with a project manager from that agency, so you'll really get a deep understanding of whether the technology works, and it gets the agencies the opportunity as well. And at the end of that proof of concept phase, agencies will have the opportunity to select companies to move forward with a year-long pilot. And that's really just a deeper test to fully understand if the concept and the technology is viable and scalable and works within the concept of their system. And afterwards, there's opportunities within each of the agencies to commercially scale the technology. So as mentioned, every year we go out and we ask regional agencies what their pressing priorities are. This year, 2 rose to the top. One around human capital, so how do we best utilize human capital resources? And the second is around operational efficiencies, which asks, how do we utilize new tools to increase operational efficiencies? So if you go to our website, each of the challenge pages has a lot of really rich information for you to check out. And under each challenge page, there is a list of use cases for you to review. These use cases were derived directly from conversations we had from staff at all of the agencies. And so if you have technology that can meet one of these use cases, we encourage you to apply. However, even if you have technology that's not directly applicable to one of these use cases, but can answer the broad question, we still encourage you to apply because these are not prescriptive. These are just examples of use cases that we heard from our conversations. Couple of notes regarding eligibility requirements, and just to note that these are all listed on our FAQ page, at that link at the bottom. So check out our FAQ page on our website. But in general, we're looking for growth stage companies with innovative solutions. You don't have to have experience working with a transit agency, but we do really like to see companies that have already found product market fit, that have paying customers in another sector would be ideal. Must be independently owned and operated, so subsidiaries of larger companies are not eligible. And then if you're working with the MTA specifically, you need to be registered as a corporation with the New York Department of State. And again, if you go to our FAQ, there's specific instructions on how exactly you do that. Eligibility criteria, again, this is also on our website and FAQ, but for both the written online applications and the virtual, and sorry, apologies, the in-person semifinalist pitch presentations, both public and private sector evaluators will be using this criteria to evaluate your company. And really, at the end of the day, we want to understand if your product will have an impact on the transit agency, if your team is in a strong position to stay in business and will be able to be there throughout the duration of the program, you provide unique value, and you're able to demonstrate how your technology is either reducing costs or improving operations or customer service in some way. What do you get? So you'll hear a little more this afternoon when we speak to one of the Transit Tech Lab alumni, but we've heard from additional alumni of the program that they would not have worked in the public sector without this program, because it can be very challenging, especially as a younger stage company, to work within transit agencies, navigate big organizations, and we are specifically designed to help you navigate that process. So you get access to decision makers, you get access to leadership throughout the duration of that 8-week proof of concept. We set up meetings with senior leadership. You get access to a project manager from the agency who will help navigate internal resources, and you also will receive mentorship through our executive and residence program. At the end of the 8-week proof of concept, you'll be able to present your findings to a broad array of senior leadership across all regional agencies. And from there, if selected for a pilot, you will have access to apply to NYSERDA for grant funding. So this is a common question we get, that is funding available for pilots? And the answer is, you can apply for funding. It's not guaranteed. However, we work with NYSERDA, which stands for New York State Energy Research Development Authority, and they have graciously partnered with us since we've been around in 2018, and you will be able to apply for them for grant funding for the pilot. Just making sure everybody's aware of the key dates. March 2nd is when applications are due. However, we recommend that you do not wait until March 2nd. Please do consider applying early. We have our semifinalist pitch presentations. These will be in person on March 29th and 30th. Then if successful, you can be invited to Demo Day, which is also in person and will be an expo style format, where you'll have the opportunity to present your technology to a wide array of transit officials. The proof of concept begins May 1st, and then the year-long pilot begins May 9th. And again, please do visit our FAQ. We have updated our FAQ from the last info session we had in January with questions that were raised from that info session. So please do go on our website. If there are additional questions that are raised during this info session, we will add to them, and they will be on our website by the end of next week. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're going to host an intimate discussion with Mike Wojner from the MTA and Ken Sills, co-founder and CTO of Pretect. So I'm going to start by asking a couple of questions, but first, before we do that, Mike and Ken, maybe we'll start with Mike. Can you please introduce yourself and share how the MTA has been involved with the Transit Tech Lab?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Wojner. I'm a senior advisor for innovation and policy in the chair's office here at MTA. Glad to see so many folks on the call. We're very excited for this year's challenges. They've proven to be very worthwhile for us to participate in several years past now, and look forward to reviewing submissions and seeing what really, really great ideas are out there that we might be able to partner on. So thank you.
Great. And Ken, I'll have you introduce yourself as well.
Hey, everybody. My name is Ken Sills. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Pretect. Createch is a Memphis-based startup that delivers vehicle prognostics. We tell the New York City Transit Authority, for instance, when their buses are going to break down. We started working with the Transit Tech Lab in their first cohort, and that was a great opportunity for us to launch in transit. We had barely touched transit before that. We were focused on trucking, and this allowed us to pivot into that and really shepherd us through the process. And it was a lot of learning, but it was very, very helpful.
Great, thank you, Ken. We're going to start with Mike. So Mike, as senior advisor at the MTA, can you provide context around why it can be challenging to pursue innovation, especially in the public sector, and what tools you use to expedite solving critical challenges that the agency faces?
Sure. So we are a 70,000 plus employee organization with infrastructure that is well over, for the most part, well over 100 years old. We have a lot of folks who make their entire careers working here at the MTA for New York City Transit or for the commuter railroads or for the Bridge and Tunnel Authority. And we have a lot of folks who just kind of get used to a certain way of doing things. And that certain way of doing things has been passed along from generations ago at times. We don't have enough folks here who are open and eager to new ways of doing things. There's always the sort of the mantra of what we've always done it this way. And that's one of the things that I try to key on in every facet of our operations to encourage folks to be open to new ideas. And particularly when leadership decides to go in a different direction, to be, sort of embrace it and not fight it. And it's just, I'm not saying anything that anyone hasn't heard before in the world of business and corporations. So it just seems to be a particular problem with such a large organization and such a long history here at the MTA.
And I will say we are very lucky to have Mike as our senior advisor. He helps troubleshoot and make sure that whatever challenges come up, we work on it together and we have an open partnership. And that's what makes the lab and companies who go through the lab so successful. And on that note, Ken, as an alumni of the program, would love to hear a little bit from you. If you can just share a bit more context around what you were able to accomplish through the lab, specifically highlighting, the KPIs that enabled the MTA to work better, faster, cheaper. And then also if you can share, if you have 3 key elements of success that led to success of your company that you now have a scaled commercial deployment with the MTA, can you share how you got there?
Okay, so one thing at a time. What did we do? Apologies for the background noise. I'm a little sensitive to it, but I am actually in between meetings. I was just in 2 Broadway talking to procurement, and am on my way to the Grand Avenue Depot to talk to the people that we work with there. So what do? We are currently, we've gone to the other end of it. We have the commercial deployment now, and we're looking to build an RFP that what should be something we're going for later in this year. So it's a long process, but how did it start? You had Stacy kind of roll out the different pieces to this. The first was a pilot, an 8-week pilot, and boy, did it ever go fast. We do predictive diagnostics. We use sensor data from buses to be able to predict when they're going to break down. And to be able to do that in 8 weeks was impossible realistically. So what they did instead was they gave us a chunk of data that they already had taken. It wasn't live data, if you will, that were coming off the buses like they usually do. But they handed us a chunk of data, and we proved that we could predict what happened next. So they gave us a bunch of data, and we said, okay, this is what will come like the week after that. This is the kind of things that you're going to see. And so really quickly, we won kind of a pool from some stakeholders there who were interested to see, does this work at all, or is this just pixie dust? Is it a real thing or not? And within the 8 weeks, we're able to prove, hey, we can do something that validates we know what we're talking about. And that launched us into the pilot, where really it was a little bit more about, okay, well, can you do this for real on buses? And then another pilot after that. So we spent about 2 years total going through this process of learning how to not just predict the future for the buses, but how do you deliver value to the depot? How do you deliver value to the MTA on the bottom line? And how do you prove that you can do it? And for us, that was the big thing. We had the president of the MTA recently present our project to the New York City Council to say what we achieved for them. And it was a 76% improvement in productivity for their maintenance staff, a 23% reduction in parts cost, and a over 40% reduction in the amount of diagnostic labor. So those are the KPIs that we were actually able to really clearly show. The Transit Tech Lab was really important in so many pieces of this, but one of it was getting the alignment of the executives so that the people who were making these decisions, and you heard Mike mention this, people do it the way they do it. You have to give people the safety to fail. And in an organization like the MTA, that's a dangerous thing. The idea of failing, you want anything but a failure. You can go the normal way for your whole life and have a successful career. But if you take a chance, you could really have a bad thing happen to you and you get a name. The Transit Tech Lab gets executive buy-in enough that people step up and put their neck on the line and say, I'm going to go for this because there's less chance of having a negative impact to their career. And there can be a rather significant positive impact to their career. For instance, we now have Rich David going out and publicly talking. He was just at the UITP conference, which is like the global public transit conference, talking about the work that Pretech did with his team. So you can see that there's a big win that they can get. They're protected from having like a failure on their record, if you will. And that's super, super important to getting them to sign up and say, I'm willing to take a chance on this. So that was one of the biggest things, is executive buy-in, but also just setting up the cadence of how do you interact with these people? What are all the barriers that you're going to encounter? Because there are many. It's a massive organization. You're dealing with a little tiny sliver of it, and all of what you're doing is likely going to depend on other pieces of it. Being able to navigate that is hugely important, and having people like the Transit Tech Lab help you with that, very, very important for us.
That's great. Thank you, Ken. All right, Mike, a question for you. What has been the impact for the MTA in creating and participating in the Transit Tech Lab? Mike, you are on mute.
Sorry, we were created, I think, in the shadow of the summer from hell, when our statistics and our ridership sort of sunk to the lowest points in recent memory. A lot of problems were identified. We've tried to address those in subsequent challenges, and it was the governor at that time who really was the leader in the thinking that brought the Tech Lab about. We've addressed problems with our signaling. I think last year we had challenges on sustainability and resiliency, and of course we've utilized the partnership in the Tech Lab to address the many challenges that we faced during COVID, which we really had. We were just as struggling just as much as every other aspect of business, and particularly in transportation. And it was a valuable resource for us in that time period to find new ways, whether it started with cleaning and sterilization and so forth, and to getting our riders back, because it's a hill we're still climbing. So those are the types of issues we try to address. This year's challenges, the human capital challenge, that our HR folks are really excited to finally have some light shown on their vertical here at the MTA, and operational efficiency is a much broader category. So hopefully a lot of the things that folks here on the call will help us look into and address challenges. It's difficult at times to get the folks here at the MTA to come forward and identify the areas where they're struggling with whether it be from an equipment perspective or a policy perspective or an IT perspective. We are great. I'm grateful that the leadership here has encouraged sort of the lower run managers to be honest about the things that they need help with, and those bubble up to the top and become the topics for our challenges. So looking forward again to meeting some more of those challenges this year.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And then Ken, on to you. Can you share, you did this a little bit, but can you go into a little bit more detail regarding the benefits you received from the Transit Tech Lab? And then also, how did this help in your business development goals with other customers?
I mean, there are three things that I'd highlight on this. Number one, don't undervalue the value of a press release that comes with the New York City MTA on it. That has been very important to us to be able to say we're working with them. Even before we had a paid contract with them, that was still a value and it allowed us to really go out to market and have people say, oh, well, okay, you're working with them. I guess this is a real thing. So very helpful to just to have that kind of a brand associated with the Glow. On top of that, like from a startup perspective, it can be very helpful to investors to have the sense that this is for real. And Transit Tech Lab regularly was willing to hop on the calls. I mean, they're not going to lie, and they can't overstate what you're doing, but they can say, yes, this company is doing this for this, and this is, this is exactly how they fit in. Just having investors being able to talk to someone that says, yeah, this is a real thing, that was very helpful. But I would say that, especially when it comes to how we're now in, I think, 40 different transit agencies across North America. So, and that we were in 2 before we started with Transit Tech Lab. And why? One of the things that Transit Tech Lab really helped us with is formalization of the process for doing the kind of pilots that matter to these customers. We learned how to structure it so that you could go in, get some data. We structured what I would consider a gold standard study, actions and control group, where you're delivering results on one and folding the others into sandbox for comparison. We now use that in other agencies. Any large agency that we're with, we're saying, hey, this is how we did it back in New York City. And they're like, oh, okay, well, that seems like the way to go. So we have now a formalized process for approaching other transits as a sign of maturity. So that's been very helpful for us in moving forward in the transit vertical. Like I don't know if I said, but we started off in trucking. And that vertical we still work in, we have great customers in, but municipal transit is now our larger vertical because it's exploded. It's at the point now where we can't keep up with it. We're actually having to slow down our sales process because recently, now that we're in the news with Rich Davies saying, hey, this is the best thing since sliced bread, it really matters. We're having transits, who would never take our calls. 3 years, we've been trying to get meetings with them just to say, hey, this is who we are. Now they're calling us and saying, oh, I heard from my vice president, we've fallen behind New York City. That's a problem. Stop. So it matters. That answer question, Stacey?
Yeah, that was great. And then just following up on that. So if you could put yourself back in your shoes of, thinking about where you were when you were applying to the Transit Tech Lab for the first time, that online application, the semifinalist day, what advice would you give someone in those shoes right now? And or is there anything that you would have done differently and that you would recommend for people to consider as they're applying?
I actually felt like we had good guidance going into this, and like the approach really worked out well. So I don't know if I would change anything because I actually like where we ended up. That said, a learning for me over the last little while is you have to have patience. An organization this large is slow, and it has to be. They provide an essential service. You have people who are like, whoa, we're not a startup, right? We screw up, people don't get to work, people don't get to the hospital. So you have to change your mindset a little bit. My mindset has changed from startup to, okay, startup working with New York City MTA means you have an infinite quantity of patients and then you run really fast. And it's just back and forth on that. So always be willing to recognize that they're going to take a little bit of time sometimes. Don't be too patient, but have some patience, but never be the blocker. And if it's on your side of the fence, throw it back as quickly as you can, because you know it's going to take a little bit to get there. It was worth the wait. Like I said, it's been transformational for us as a company. So I'm very appreciative that we had the patience to do this. But I would tell my younger self to just expect it's going to take a little longer. We also had COVID happen right in the middle of this. So we went from the 8-week into our pilot. Halfway through the pilot, COVID hit. And that was really tumultuous. The fact that we got through the other side while still working with New York City, who all they could think about was getting plastic to save the lives of the drivers. It's almost unbelievable that we got to the other side and still maintained attention.
That's great. Thanks, Ken. And then Mike, same question to you. What advice would you have for startups looking to partner with the MTA or maybe MTA, also other regional transit agency partners?
I would keep the focus on the topics of the challenges. I mean, I know that everyone that's on the call has some reason to be here, right? They've got a product, they've got a program that is new, but really I would hope that folks focus on the items that were the issues that we're trying to address, and take the time to ask questions and learn as much as you can about us and about our sister agencies that are part of the challenge, in order to tailor your submissions. It's sort of like when you're just out of college and applying for your first job, and you have one resume that you want to send to everybody, and it's worth it to take the time to make the submission unique and tailored to the challenges that our agency specifically is trying to address. That would be the advice that I would give. Having reviewed a lot of submissions in the past, those that feel that as though they are cookie cutter and the same thing, generic form that goes to everyone that they have an interest in partnering with, you can tell, and you can tell which one they're not like that as easily. So that would be one bit of advice that I might offer.
That's great advice. And building off of that, just some tactical advice for when you are applying to the Transit Tech Lab. So you have the option in the application to say, I want this specific company or this specific agency to review my application. And if you have different products that you would want to have different agencies review, for example, if you want DOT, if you have more of a curb street sort of product, but you also have a product that could sell to a transit agency, you might want to consider having two separate applications, one for a DOT, one for a transit agency, and then specifically mark that. And if you have one product that could be sold to different agencies, in that one application, you might want to consider saying, for the MTA, here's what we could do; for the Port Authority, for New Jersey Transit, here's what we could do, just so you are a bit more tailored in your approach. And depending on how if you want to have two separate applications or just one application, we will make sure that the right reviewers are seeing your application when you select that. Here's who I want to see reviewing my application. And then I just want to share from my own personal perspective. So for a bit of personal background, I have a startup and a public sector background, and I learned about procurement and working in government innovation for the first time when I started working in government in 2018. And coming from a startup, that was such a shock to learn about all the processes. And yes, this is a critical service that we have a responsibility, as Ken was saying, agencies have a responsibility to serve the public, and they can't just break things and move really fast. There's a method to the madness, and there's some healthy resistance. And so there is a process that you have to work with. But also there is, when I was working in the public sector, I was looking for a tool to help just test technologies before we had to do a 2-year-long procurement. And that's exactly what the Transit Tech Lab is. It's really a process to help you get access, feedback on your product and whether or not this is worthwhile. You're not going to spend 5 years in an RFP sales cycle where you're trying to figure out if your technology meets the needs. You actually get access to the customers right away. And we guide you through a facilitated, scaled approach where it starts with a quick 45-minute online application, then a deeper in-person presentation, 8-week proof of concept, and you'll only move forward through the various stages if the agency finds what you have to say and your product compelling. So we do what we can to not waste anyone's time. And I would say, if I was back working in the public sector, when I had my public sector hat on, I was really seeking this sort of organization that could help test technologies. And I came across the Transit Tech Lab as a gold standard, which is why I'm here and running the program. And I think it's just, honestly, from I obviously have some bias here, but from a personal perspective, I think it is an incredible model to help test technologies for the public sector. So I think you can see from our agency partners and alumni that they feel very similarly. And with that, I would love to open it up for questions. Please do type it in the chat or put it in the Q&A function, and we will answer those questions. And I know we have one already, which I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Yasmin Lalani. The question is around The application contains questions about key financials. Is this section mandatory? Will there be any disadvantage in not disclosing the financials? Is the company going to be ranked based upon its financials?
Okay, so short answer is no, it is not required to include that information. However, it's in your best interest too, because part of the so, I think one of the cool things about the program is that the transit agencies are reviewing the applications themselves, and part of their evaluation criteria is looking at financial stability and making sure that a company is mature enough from a financial perspective to kind of handle a year-long pilot. So the more information you include, the better.
That's great. Thank you. If we have a product that would increase the operational efficiency of building level assets for the agencies, but in no way is related to actual transportation, is it worth applying? I would say yes. I'm going to go off just by saying any sort of broad solution that answers the broad question, improving operational efficiencies, is eligible to apply. But Mike, I will hand it off to you, as I see you have a unmuted.
Yes. Particularly if they save us money. And for anyone who's got any familiarity with the financial state of the MTA, we are always on the lookout for new ways to save money. So yes, buildings included.
Actually, if I can add a little bit to that, Casey, I just want to let people know that we applied to a challenge that was to make buses move faster. We do predictive diagnostics, so we prevent them from breaking down. It was a stretch to say the least, but we got in and we saved them money. So don't be put off by the fact that you're not a cookie cutter fit for exactly what's described. They keep their eyes open for good ideas.
That's great. Thank you. We have a question here. What is the application link to start the process? So the link, it's through F6S. We will share it as a follow-up via email. However, if you go to our website and if you view one of the challenge websites, either operational efficiency or human capital, there is a big call to action that says apply now, and that will take you to the F6S application page, but we will also send that out in the follow-up email. Any other questions? And just so you're aware, we are here to answer questions regarding the challenge and not necessarily technology specific questions. So there are certain questions that we are happy to answer, but when it comes to views on technology, we are not able to answer all questions. Please confirm we can apply to multiple agencies. Yes, please do. We, unless stated, we will assume that you are applying to all agencies, and we will have evaluators from all agencies review your application. But if you only want to have one agency review, for example, if you have a streets specific solution that would only apply to DOT, you can request that only DOT will review your application. How many applications were last year? I think we had around 150 applications last year. And I assume that full confidentiality of proposed challenges will be maintained. So we have a very strong confidentiality clause in our terms and conditions. I encourage you to go on our website and review our terms and conditions. And yes, there is confidentiality clauses on both sides that protects both the agency and the company. And we have our evaluators. If they're private sector evaluators, we have them fill out confidentiality forms. So yes, we make sure that there is full confidentiality, you are protected, and the agencies are protected as well. Any last questions? If not, we thank you so much. Mike, do you have anything else to add?
I'm just going to add that if there are questions that folks weren't comfortable asking here, or if they come up with questions later on down down the process, then please feel free to send them along, and I will answer them or get someone here, the most appropriate person here at MTA, to answer them. Always, think it's beneficial to be getting as much information to you as we can on the front end as possible and prevent surprises on the back end.
Yep. We have one more question. Are there any specific business insurance requirements for the pilot stage? Yes, there are. If selected as a proof of concept winner, you will receive the pilot agreement, which will have insurance requirements. And that's with the MTA, Port Authority, and New Jersey Transit. New York City Department of Transportation, their terms and conditions, they already have linked the pilot contract, and there's specific insurance requirements for DOT already on the website. So feel free to check those out. But yes, there will be some sort of insurance requirements, and that will be in the pilot contract. In case we have multiple solutions to address multiple topics, would you rather us present specific applications for each topic or group them together? So what I would recommend is that if you have different use cases or very different products for different use cases, I'd recommend submitting different applications just to make sure the evaluators understand that what you're proposing is different. However, if you have one product that could address different use cases, then you could just explain that in the application. But just to make sure, I would put before submitting an application, I'd put yourself in the reviewer's body and make sure that, if as a third party, if I were reading this, does this make sense? Does this solution make sense for a specific challenge? And am I addressing a challenge? Mike or Ken or Yasmin, if you have anything to add, feel free to add anything.
So if you are going to submit multiple applications, just logistically, it's we got a little bit of a workaround on the platform. So just feel free to reach out to us and we can make sure that, you have that capability, but it's not something that you automatically have.
And then another question, do proposals meant to raise additional funding for MTA also considered? I'm not sure I fully understand this question.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Anything. Yes. Why not?
Okay. Great. We have an answer. Okay. I think we are at the end of our questions. Oh, wait, sorry, one more. Of the 150 projects, how many were accepted for testing and how many made it to the end? So for last year, we had 150 online applications. I believe we had 20 semifinalists, 10 proof of concept winners, and 6 pilot winners. And we're still in the pilot phase for those. Okay, I now think that we are at the end of our questions. If you have any additional questions, let us know. We're available via email. We'll send confirmation emails and thank you emails to everybody so you'll have a direct response to us. And check out our website for links to the application and to the FAQ. We will post this online. And thank you again for your time. And I want to give a special thank you to Mike and Ken as our guests who are so knowledgeable and share their experience through the program. And we really look forward to seeing your applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey. And thank you for, and Yasmin as well.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank